So hi, Erica. Hey,
Hi,
thanks
how's it
for
going?
joining me
Yeah,
today. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm excited to talk to you about Beach Lovers, your new book, which I just got in the mail today.
yes.
That I
Very excited.
ordered.
Good
Yeah,
timing. Yeah.
yeah. And Erica's shipping them out now. So anyone watching this later on, I hope they're all out of print. You won't be able to get one. But as of, June 2022, they are being shipped now.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to meet with you today. I'm doing kind of a series of a few interviews right now, mostly with clients who I've worked with who have completed a book.
Mhm.
And so I know a little bit about this project from when you took my workshop with the Santa Fe workshops.
Mhm.
And then of course what's happened, because you and I met a little bit kind of in a consulting capacity
Mhm.
after the fact. Um, but I don't know like about the project in the beginning. So I want to kind of talk about project and then I want to kind of jump into book. But will you give us just a little background on, how long you worked on the project, where you photographed?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I began shooting in May 2015, and it was truly like I'm sure many people a happy accident. I didn't set out to do this series. I was actually pretty stuck creatively. I wasn't really liking any of my work. I didn't really have a good body of work. I just knew that I liked going to the beach in New York. I thought it was a very unique place, and happened to look up one day and saw kind of a couple very intertwined, and I thought it looked just very romantic, and I took a photo. And it happened to be on a film camera, so I finished the roll and I kind of kept an eye out for couples. And then when I developed the film, I was like, oh, this looks really nice. I feels very, just reminded me of sort of those old romantic photos so many of us know of New York that felt very iconic. So I did it for the rest of the summer, and I shared the work pretty immediately with, I run a photography collective. So I was bringing prints for feedback and getting some great responses. And so it felt like a pretty easy name just to call it Beach Lovers, because it's both people who love the beach and then lovers at the beach. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with doing it that first summer. And then obviously in New York, you only have kind of until the end of September. So I had to wait, until next May to sort of get going again. And from then until where we are now with the book, I mean, it was just like summer after summer after summer of just shooting just constantly. And a lot of trial and error, a couple summers where the work wasn't that great or they all sort of looked the same. So there was a lot of bringing it to critiques and feedback and reviews, and getting comfortable with like harsh feedback and then trying to go back and do better work. So it's nice now because the book has a select number from kind of each year that I've shot it, but it's a nice place to be where you can sort of see where, for myself, I see where it grew. I see where I pushed myself. And so kind of around 2018, I had strong enough images. I'd gotten published in a few places, both people seeing me on Instagram or having like pitched myself to various photography websites, and I had a couple shows. And so overall, like the series was sort of like starting to get a little bit known. And then I had taken Mary Virginia Swanson's workshop, actually also at Santa Fe Workshops in 2017, and brought that series there. And she gave me a lot of ideas. And so I knew as the series got stronger, I knew I wanted to do a book. And then your workshop was supposed to happen in April 2020. And so,
Yeah. And we all know what happened then.
yeah,
Yeah, because it was supposed to be an in-person workshop in April.
exactly. And so, yeah. And then when I had signed up for that workshop, and even before, I knew I still needed like another summer or two of work to really round it out, but I still wanted to prepare myself to get ready for a book because I knew how much work and money they could be. And I don't know if I should keep going through all the process, but there was, a couple of months in the, where we all were so terrified. I didn't think I was going to be allowed to go to a beach or photograph people. And then, we ended up.
So in 2020, did you shoot any on the beach?
I did quite a few. Yeah. Once the city sort of opened back up, the protests sort of sparked us all kind of coming back into, it was a bit different. I kept my distance a lot more from people. But at the same time, the series kind of felt more meaningful that summer anyway, because the people who were close were obviously like very close to each other, and we were all sort of staying apart. So it was kind of a funny thing to do, but it was like so nice that was like a normalcy for me to like go back to something I'd been doing for so many years. Yeah, and then your workshop was that November, and I felt pretty good about the kind of collection of images I had at that point. So
yeah, that was a very strong workshop. I need to follow up on some more. I'm sure there's been some more books produced out of that.
Yeah. So and then throughout kind of making this whole book happen, I still ended up doing another summer of work this past summer, 2021, and I'm glad that I did, because some of those images are in the book and I'm really happy that they're in there. So at this point, the book is 7 years of shooting it. Yeah.
Wow. And okay, so I have questions probably, and there would be other photographers too, especially maybe big people in the beginning of certain projects. And this may be something you just say, I just did it naturally, but how did you work up even just the nerve to go and photograph people, especially when they're in such intimate moments?
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually maybe deal with that internally or as a process? I know that's hard to kind of describe.
No, I mean, I've had to answer this question in so many different ways. I think largely, I mean, it's like in the canon of street photography, I was not asking permission. It was largely anonymous. I tried in my kind of earlier stages, I would sometimes approach people, and then the moment would kind of be ruined, or they would freeze up. And I kind of made the decision to not do that, because it wasn't, I felt like that kind of photographers who do that properly, like sit with people and they interview them and they get captions and narratives. And that's not really what I was interested in doing or comfortable doing. So in a way that didn't really take me much nerve, because I wasn't asking for permission. But I was always very mindful. It's intimate. It's, fairly, we're just in bathing suits. It's, so there's a very private and public aspect that kind of go with this series. And I kind of would always come back to just my own, like, if that was my body on display, would I be comfortable with it? If I opened a book and happened to see it there. And I think that was kind of my own line of like, would I feel good walking into a gallery seeing something like this? And so there's dozens of images that never made the cut, either were like maybe inappropriate or too revealing or felt exploitive, or just, I really did sit with what I was taking, and I wanted people to walk away with the feeling of like intimacy and nostalgia, not like exploitive or like, oh, what did she do? I was very conscious.
Kind of over the line voyeurism, kind of.
Yeah. And I was very careful. I mean, in a few few photos you can see faces, but overall people aren't really that recognizable. It was really more about sort of the moment. And in not all cases, but a lot of it with the backdrop of New York, like these kind of really soft moments on such a gritty sort of backdrop. So it didn't really take me much nerve, but I also, in a way, was not needing to have nerve because I wasn't asking anyone. And
But
people
I
were
think that requires a lot of nerve for a lot of people, even
maybe,
just
yeah, no, that's
yeah.
true.
Nerve might not be the best word, but
Yeah. I mean, maybe in some ways it's, I also am at the beach so often, it's like second home for me. And, I'm not like I think I blend in, so people didn't really tend to notice me. And people, I think, you can see from some of the photos, were either asleep or so in a moment with their partner, they were not even seeing that a photo was being taken, or some did and didn't seem to care. So it really was like, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it never, or, or if I sensed I was making someone uncomfortable, I would drop it. Like I would keep moving and
yeah.
shooting. So I was very sensitive to, did it feel right? Should this, if someone were to come across their own image with their partner, would they be like, would they feel good about seeing it? So I did.
Or with a partner they weren't supposed to be with.
Right. I know someone said that to me once and I was like, oh, I never even thought about that. But
Yeah, just in case.
hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there was you talked about too, and I know from us talking that you may have, even with some of the discussions with the publisher, felt like there may have been some gaps kind of for your last year of shooting. So you actually photographed a good bit more right before the book was published, or not? Were there some of those included in there? And if so, how did you kind of discuss what those were, and how did you, as far as like, if we dig into the nitty gritty of the book now, when you're looking at it and sequencing and editing, like what were some of those thoughts about that?
So that was actually two different things that had happened. So I had a body of work that felt largely done, and I raised the money. I did my Kickstarter in April 2021, and then I started shopping around the proposal. And it was actually, I'm sure am I allowed to say publisher names on this in terms of who said what to me and who didn't?
Well, I guess so, as long as you don't have any
No, it's
confidentiality
nothing
with
bad.
them.
So no.
And as long as it's not, very bad.
No,
If it's
nothing.
negative, then
No,
we'll say, "Mom, we'll
I'll
pass on
keep
it."
on. No, it's positive, but so Powerhouse Books, I'm sure you know them. They offered, I don't know if they still do, but at the time they offered a paid review of your proposal, and I decided to do it because I really wanted to hear from a publisher what they thought of what I had presented, because I'd had silence, I had some interest, I had one all-out rejection that was very crushing, and so I thought, you know what, I'm already invested in this, like, let me see what they have to say. And she gave me such an in-depth and incredible review, and she was the one who came back to me. It was it was not Daylight, it was actually my review with Powerhouse, that she said, I want to see a bit more of like A, B, and C. And so she wanted a bit more city, so I did shoot with a bit more of like New York in the background. I think she said, you kind of have to choose, is it about the couples or about New York? And so I did agree with that. I do want New York to be present in it, so I did do that. And then another one of her suggestions was like, go to Staten Island, go to the Bronx, go here. And I was like, well, like that. I didn't take all her suggestions, but so she gave me just some feedback on like images. And then she went through like each image I had in my bigger proposal and kind of like gave me a full review. And it was actually very helpful. So I then sort of reformulated the proposal. I had been kind of shopping around and changing. So I met with her, I believe in May or June, and then I signed with Daylight like late August. So I'd had a bit of time to kind of shoot that summer, and then I had an even bigger body of work to send the editor once we started editing, to choose from. And so a lot of what I ended up shooting last summer made the book, which was nice.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So it was helpful. And, like any review, I took what felt right, and I left kind of what, it was, the point wasn't to run to every single beach in New York. And like, I wouldn't have that in me to do that. But yeah, it was very helpful. So that was a little bit different. So once I started working actually on the layout and sequencing, that was a very different conversation, but that went really well.
So
Yeah.
what roles did you take in the whole process of doing the book? Like, did you edit it down to a very solid group of images and they used just those, or was it kind of a partnership relationship?
I sent them a final, I believe 90, and the book has 66 final images in it. So, and I even knew within the, like, I had even 5 to 10 that were my own maybes, but it's that thing where you look at an image for so long, you sort of start to not, it was helpful to have an outside perspective, basically. So her name is Ursula. She's the creative director, editor at Daylight. She came back to me with her selection. So I then kind of cross-checked what she had removed. And I think I ended up maybe fighting to keep or put back in like 1 or 2 more. But in the end, like, I thought she did like an excellent edit. I really liked her. I think I have one image that didn't make the book that I kind of wish had, but other than that, like, I think she did a really excellent job curating it down. And then, yeah, we had a very involved, like, I was very involved in almost like every decision, but she was like the design, like, I'm terrible at, she did the InDesign, she laid out the PDFs, horizontal, vertical, placement. So, it's like a good 2 months of like very intensive, weekly check-ins and working, even just like where the essays, what do I want a plate list, like all that kind of stuff. So that was I was very involved kind of in all of that. Yeah.
And then how did you make decisions about the size of the book?
In a more crude way, part of it was financial, because I just couldn't afford to do a bigger book than what this was. This was already, as I'm sure everyone knows, like a big investment. But also having enough of my own photo books, I felt like it was a fair size to do justice to the images, and anything smaller would have been too small, and anything bigger I just honestly couldn't really afford at the moment. And maybe one day we'll hopefully work my way up to being of that caliber, but it was just it felt like a good size also, even just for a first book for myself. But I always kind of thought 8 by 10 was like kind of just a really nice,
I think it's a really nice size. I just got it in the mail, like we said, you had asked if I received it, and then we had scheduled the movie already.
Oh, great.
So can sneak peek through it. So so I haven't had enough time to absorb it yet.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I do think it's a good size, and a nice little weight. And I'm going to enjoy about like how I end up looking at it. Like, do I put it here on my desk and take a look, or do I put it in my lap, and
Right.
and how I'm going to end up holding it, because that's some of the big discussions we have too. Like, especially because this one is, I mean, to me, in some ways, it makes sense for it to be a little bit smaller, because it is such an intimate subject. And we talked probably about like the size and how people hold it in their hands and have to move it in or out, or and so I think that a little bit smaller probably for this project was probably a good decision.
Yeah, Ursula said sort of the same thing, that you want to kind of get close in these kind of close moments. So yeah, it felt like a good size. And similarly, part of the process was them sending me like paper samples and cover samples and size samples. So I held like a book dummy of this size very early on, and it felt like a good sort of size. Yeah, when I was able to make that decision.
Yeah. So you get to make all, you get to handle a lot of the papers, make a
Yeah.
lot of those decisions.
Oh, a lot of them, yeah, which was really nice. So, you know, there was, which I imagine are still happening today, limits because of the supply chain demand and pandemic and what's
Yeah.
possible and what was within the budget. But I mean, everything they sent was incredibly high quality. I liked everything. I went with a more expensive cover, but I didn't want to be cheap with the cover. I wanted a nice cover. But yeah, no, I was very, I think the biggest conflict was we had very different ideas of what the cover image would be, and so she pushed for different images and I pushed for, so we went back and forth forever, and then eventually, I mean, at the end of the day, it's my book, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, she was like, do, you know, it's your decision. So but no, overall it was actually a very positive experience, and I did I enjoyed it a lot.
Where was it printed?
In Turkey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think I can't remember the name of the printing house, but they're a lot
Oh,
of photo books are actually printed over there.
uh, darn, I'm forgetting it too. It starts with an O, I think.
Oh yeah, it's like Offset, I think. It
Yes,
might even be like
yeah,
Offset.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think it's on the inner, at the beginning of the book, next to all the information is there, the printer and distributor.
Yeah. I know Ursula's name. Yeah, Offset,
Yeah,
OFSET.
yeah.
And then Yapamevi, maybe,
Mhm.
if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've lost my Turkish, so.
yeah.
And then I was gonna, oh, what was the proofing process like? Like, were you pretty happy with that? Did you get to see a lot of the proofs, or were they sent to the press, or did you send the match prints, or how did
So
that?
I didn't send match prints, but I did I send match prints? I don't think I did, but I got it was like a very almost like a 16 by 20
Like a signature? Yeah,
yeah,
like
and then
page. Yeah.
like yeah, and that was beautiful, and I got to really like look at each image, and they chose a variety of, you know, I have all different kind of daytimes and skin tones in the book, so they did a proof that had sort of a sampling of like bright light, dark sky, light skin, dark skin. So I was really able to see sort of the range, and you know, some of the images too are digital, some were film. So
Oh, wow.
so yeah, no, I got to give them feedback on that, and then I also got a book. I'm not going to say I'm not, like a dummy, not the right word, but you know, the pages weren't. It wasn't bound, but I got to see
Oh,
also.
they're folding gathers.
Yes,
And
I had
F
one of
and
them as well.
G's.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that as well. And then once those were done, then it was like almost like 6 or 7 weeks of just silence, and then just waiting for the, you know, the books. Then they were off to the printers, but so there was a lot more around like the PDFs and the layout. That was a lot more back and forth, and then it was just the big sheet proof and then the fold and gather, and those were kind of the two rounds of proofs that I had before it went, you know, to print.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, scary, but
Yeah.
but
I know. Yeah. You're like, okay, push the button now, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. But you know, a big relief at the same time, because you can sort of kill yourself over, you know, I love it. I'm happy with it. At the same time, like there's little things where I'm like, oh, I should have put this here. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like, you know, I think you can also be your own worst critic or own kind of overthinker, and you just at some point need to make that decision and press the button. Yeah.
Yeah, and let it go out into the world.
Yeah,
But also, when I am teaching the workshops and talking to people, it's like this may be the only one you ever do. And
right.
and then it's a lot of paper and expense and and all that. So you want to
Yeah.
make sure that
Mhm.
it's as right as you can get it.
Exactly.
Without being obsessive, unless that is the person you are. Some people,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they're going to pay for the perfection too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you, if you were now, like, say somebody who's maybe completed a project, say where you were, even if you were advising, like, when you were taking some of the first workshops, or when you were taking like maybe Swanee's, or you were taking mine, or as you went along the way, what are some of the things that you might tell someone to kind of either save time, save trouble, save money,
Mhm.
or make a better object? You think something like
Mhm.
that went really well, or something that went, not
Right.
so well, that you might.
Right.
You did a Kickstarter too, so you have that experience of
Yeah.
fundraising.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, I couldn't have done the book without the Kickstarter. I mean, it really, I had to know that going into, and just kind of say, okay, if I don't get this funded, I might need to wait another year and figure out how to raise the money better next time. So unfortunately, money is a big part of this. And so I think I couldn't have done anything differently, but because I also am juggling like my paid work. So I sometimes wish I had had more time, or had maybe made the time to like go after grants or additional funding, because I paid for the rest of it myself essentially. Which is nice that I was, able to work hard enough to do that, but it's a lot of money. And so for anyone, I guess, thinking about it, just being prepared for, like, if you don't raise $20,000, can you put $10,000 of your own money into, and I raised almost 16 on Kickstarter, but things that I think I had read about and like heard about, but they didn't quite sink in, were just like, they take credit card fees, they take a Kickstarter fee. So I lost probably $1,700 from what it shows on my Kickstarter to what I received in processing fees and the cut that Kickstarter takes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard about 8%, but you're doing that was about like 11-ish or something,
It was
right?
pretty high. It
Oh,
was pretty
yeah.
high well, it's like you have to cover every single credit card fee for every donation that was made, and then the Kickstarter fee. So maybe it wasn't that much, but I definitely lost over 1,000. Like it was like $1,200 or $1,300. That was just
Yeah, and I would think about that too if people are thinking about, like, analyze the Kickstarter pretty well, because there is a per transaction fee too, right?
right,
It's a Kickstarter
right,
fee. And then there's the credit card fee. So look
right.
at like if you're offering a lower dollar gift item, then that's
Yeah,
great, because maybe you'll have a lot more supporters.
right,
But then if you're paying, if they're giving you $1 and they take 30 cents, that's a 30%
right,
transaction fee.
right.
So just kind of looking at some of that math too. Excel
Yeah.
is a friend.
So I mean, I had really done my research on Kickstarter for like 2 months. I read everything I could. I watched Kickstarter videos. Like I really, which is, I hope it's not too much of a tangent, but I mean, I think a lot of photographers do crowdfunding to raise money for these. Just little things like, I did have a line for shipping, but I had people from other countries choose the same shipping line as American bidders, and now I'm having to pay international shipping. Like,
Oh yeah.
shipping part of it is just right now, like, been more of a headache than I had anticipated. Not the end of the world, but so just little things, the logistics of the book. Also, I guess the other thing to photographers, and not in a discouraging way, I haven't made any personal work for almost 3 months now, and it's like sort of killing me just because I'm just working. It's very exciting. Like I've obviously put a book into the world. It's going very well. I've gotten a lot of press, which is very exciting. I have these 2 big events, and then I have my paid work. So it's just you want to be an artist, and then it goes well, and then you stop doing the art. So I think once I have a little downtime this summer, I'm going to be happy to sort of take a little pause and get back to my actual camera and start making photography again. So I think you have to get comfortable with like being a business person and being, a marketer. Like you have to
A
wear all,
distributor, a shipper.
yeah, you have to be a lot, you have to wear a lot of hats. So I think just those things I think were I sort of knew some of that going in, but like I really it's been in a good way, but it's just been a lot to balance. And like I don't have I don't have an assistant, I don't have a manager, I've just been doing it all on my own. So it's, get ready for a lot of work, I guess.
Yeah.
Is
And
my,
it's the same thing unless you're using a distributor or somebody else's ship, if you self-published it, or
right,
if you're
right,
working with a
exactly.
publisher and you get X number of copies from some
Right.
publisher and you have to
Right, which is what I'm, doing. And like, I'm not dealing with the stores and the sales and Amazon and, if they sell on Daylight's website, great. But I did get my share of copies and I'm sending out copies to my Kickstarter backers or people who have bought them from my website. So there was another part of your question that I think I've just gone on a Kickstarter tangent, but
well, it was just positives and negatives of
oh, I mean, and I think, yeah, I mean, I would say I was very comfortable with letting, if like Ursula made a design thing I didn't like, or, a layout, like I was I'm comfortable being more, I don't want to say outspoken, but like, I think some people can be shy to, might feel like criticism. And it's like you said, if this is your only book, you don't want to put something out in the world. So if you are working with someone else, be sure that you are comfortable to really be like, hey, I didn't really like the way you laid out these 4 photos. Can this go? Like, that was a practice in just sort of both taking her feedback, but then also kind of standing up for like my cover, like I really wanted a certain image. And so just, and, you had also spoken about this in the class and in our one-on-one, but like, being comfortable advocating for yourself in terms of the contract that you're signing with your publisher. And it's a big commitment. It's a lot of money, making sure that you feel like things are fair and that you have a voice, and things like that. So overall, I've had a very positive experience, but it's all been a huge learning curve. And if I ever do a second book, I'll definitely have a lot of lessons or things I might do a little bit differently and going into this, a new round, but definitely would wait a few years after this because it's been
yeah.
a lot, but it's been wonderful. Yeah.
Well, fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, thanks for talking to me today. And
pleasure. Yeah.
I'm excited to spend some time with my copy now.
Yeah, well, thank you. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback on it as well.
Okay, yay.
Yeah, and thank you for all your consulting over and your class. I mean, I'm not just saying this because we're doing this, but like I really don't think, maybe that's also a word of advice. Like if you can take a workshop or a class on how to make a photographic book,
Mhm.
and then also, or a class like Swanee's about marketing. I have been like a nonstop marketing machine for like first the Kickstarter and then the pre-orders and now the book and then my events. I mean, I've sent so many emails to press. I have like trying to get, gallery, you really have to be comfortable. I hate to say selling yourself, but or if you have the funds to hire a publicist, but like, and again, like Daylight had an in-house publicist, and so they wrote beautiful press releases. Her press releases helped to get me a good amount of press, but I will say some of the press I got that I'm very proud of, I got on my own because I went after certain places that I wanted it placed in. And, I followed up 2, 3, 4 times and I would change the like heading of my email. And sometimes that would grab someone's attention. So if you're not comfortable marketing, I would say that, I mean, could be like, maybe you're making 20 copies and it's just for a small group of friends. But if you want it to be bigger in the world, this has been a big, it's been a lot of promotion, in a good way, but it's a lot. Like you really have to go after, whether it's a show at a local library or a local podcast or a national art review, wherever you want your work placed. I don't think I would have gotten some of the coverage or the events I had if I hadn't, I don't want to say push for them, but I went, followed up and followed up and followed up. Yeah. So that's definitely a big part of, yeah, you have a book and it's being made and now you have to get it into the world. And that's, now it exists. You don't want it to, I had this thing that I don't remember if you said it in the class, I think you did, or if another student said it, but it was this, someone said this thing of like, and then you had 400 books and boxes sitting in your garage for 10 years. And I just had this like, Erica, you're not going to wake up in 5 years, 500 books sitting in your apartment. And like, for some reason that like seed stuck in my head since our class that like, I was not going to let that happen. I didn't want to have a shipment of 800 books sitting here. So I guess that's another.
My friend who talked about how he would open the door like behind in the hallway and they were all stacked behind the hallway and every morning he had a practice of going and screaming at them and then he would push the door back and then he would go his day,
So. Exactly. So yeah, it's all been really exciting, but it's a tremendous amount of work, and that just be ready to do a lot of work, I guess. Yeah.
In a good Swanee's class, like, because I always use this kind of parable story about, like that I heard somewhere, and I can't remember who's credited with it, but what's the best time to plant a tree? And it was 20 years ago.
Right.
The second best time is right now.
Right.
So, like when you took Swanee's class, you probably started your marketing plan almost at that point. Yeah. And we talk about that in my class, because that's not my strong point. Most definitely it's hers. But just starting immediately and then just thinking to use the tried expression, but outside the box as much as you possibly can. And you and I kind of talked about that. It's like, well, how many subjects is this related to, and where can you find press to sell the book? And then the idea of impressions, that's like, 7 times it takes for kind of to hit somebody. Not always, but
Right. Yeah.
Well, anyway, this was fantastic. Thanks so much,
thank you so much for talking and for all your advice and support. And I hope you like the book.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll love it. I'm going to stop the recording now and then I'll say goodbye to you after everyone else is gone.
Sounds good. Okay. Thanks.